So service learning is a teaching methodology, and about 50 faculty here at Stockton use it each semester, which results in over 1,000 students per semester who take a service learning class. And it is a way for people to get hands-on experience. So it's a way for people to actually go into the community and take what they're learning into the classroom into the community. What's important about this is at Stockton, we take it even one step further. So we want people to not just learn about it theoretically, also learn about it in community and in the classroom. But we want people to really be challenged and transformed in their own personal values, their own personal perspectives through service learning. We want their experiences to be transformative for them. And, that's sort of the Stockton idea connected to service learning.
So service learning is essentially a Venn diagram. Look at service learning as students, faculty, and community partners. And when you bring all those together, the concept for a classroom to have a component, an assignment, or the whole class really involved, focus on going out into the community and connecting what they're doing in the community to their coursework that they're doing in the classroom. Majority of times, our service learning courses are also creating products, presentations, workshops, some type of service to the constituents of the community. So, for example, we have courses that work directly with the Covenant House, and so they're working directly with a homeless population that's really close in age with our students that are taking service learning courses. The benefit to that is that there's a one-on-one relationship, there's depth of understanding and building empathy, and I think these are the core elements.
So service learning, we work with, there are about 4 different programs that have service learning as core pieces of their program. So for example, communication majors. You can't get out of communications without having at least typically one service learning class. You have to really work at it. Health science students, of which we have about 1,200 here at Stockton. Art students, strategic marketing is one of the programs that has service learning. So it really helps to build the formula. The way it helps the Stockton community is it really helps to build the formula of E plus E equals E, which is education plus experience equals employment. How it helps the Atlantic City community is by really putting students out into the community as people who do things, as people who bring things, as people who bring resources. We don't always think of college students as people who bring a lot of resources, but in fact they do. They bring their own values, they bring their own perspectives, they bring their own resources in terms of connections and networking and skills, and they take that forward into Atlantic City, and Atlantic City is changed by that. It is, and particularly the youth in Atlantic City, I think, are really changed by that as well. We have several programs where Stockton students really connect with the youth of Atlantic City through service learning and through the Stockton Center for Community Engagement.
So one of the things that the Service Learning Office works on, and specifically that has come out of the program, has been the growth of our student development programs. Students that work in the Office of Service Learning are trained as professional facilitators of dialogues. They are above and beyond not just student workers. They are my colleagues. They're the ones who run this office. They're the ones who are facilitating our reflection sessions. They go into classrooms, they do orientation sessions. They are the TAs to our service learning students, our faculty members, and our community partners. It started off with a course called GENS 2646, Tools for Social Change, and that's really the toolkit that built up our Service Engagement Advocate program. And that's really been the seed and planted over the years that's now blossoming into the Bonner Leaders Program. And so Stockton is now, and service learning specifically, is a part of a partnership of 60 other campuses throughout the country that are connected with ensuring that our students that are working with service learning students and civic engagement students to recognize how to be community organizers, to recognizing how to really work one-on-one and building relationships with people that are going to be resourceful and useful and innovative and creative in any type of craft that they're working on. So I would say that the leadership development program, from the service engagement advocates on to our Bonner leaders today, has stuck with me because I see that I'm really, at my core, practicing what I preach. And it's making sure that our students are our colleagues. And that's how we're going to solve the problems, in all honesty. That's my main concern, is really making sure that we have an opportunity to solve our community's problems together.
So one of our service learning classes that is held every semester is Why Poetry Matters. So we always have a class of students, 25, sometimes 30 students in that class. And they go out often to Atlantic City programs, and they have just transformational experiences. They are themselves transformed. They bring transformational work to students in the community. Poetry is one of those things that, the perception is, who's got time for that? When you have mouths to feed, or you have a job to do, or you're trying to keep, a roof over your head, poetry seems like such a extraneous thing. And yet these people who participate in the programs, they are able to express who they are. They're able to find their voice in ways that I think that they didn't know they had before. And the Stockton students who provide these poetry workshops are able to find in themselves a role of teacher that they didn't know that they had. A role of facilitator that they didn't know that they had. They don't have to be the sage on the stage. They can be the guide on the side. And I think that is really, really empowering. It's empowering for the Stockton students. It's empowering for the community participants. And it's really an exemplary example of sort of how service learning can transform a community.
The university's mission, focused on being a liberal arts school, identifies civic engagement and service learning at the core. It's almost one of our foundations. And when we think about service learning, we see how our students are being impacted in their classrooms, doing engaged learning, as well as an opportunity for our students and faculty members to go out and connect with our community. I think that service learning is known to many of our faculty members, and as new students come in to Stockton, they're already prepared and well aware of community service. And so really foundational, instructional kind of opportunity is for them to then take that community service that they did in high school or as a transfer student and connect it into their courses at Stockton. I think that service learning is not well known to every single student or faculty member, but that's an area of growth where we're looking to hope to expand as we look to go into Atlantic City and to build a campus there to ensure that we're going to be a partner with our community. And these are areas of growth, as I said, that I really believe are going to be potentially an authentic, realistic change that are going to make our education here at Stockton a whole lot better.
As the Center for Community Engagement seeks to expand on opportunities for students to have civic responsibilities within our community, obviously. And we have a number of programs. We also work with faculty members, just as you know, Emory DeGiorgio was a fellow of the center, and now Dr. Tara Luke is a fellow of the Center for Community Engagement. So my work here in engaging in the community, providing service with a purpose within the community, expanding the opportunities for students to make their civic mark in the community, understand how their perspectives are different than others' perspectives, and be able to learn how to learn to be with others who think completely differently, perhaps, than the way they think. I like to think that the Center for Community Engagement provides a platform for students to be in a community that is different and to learn from that community. And also, more than just what they do now as students here, but that once they graduate, that they continue their civic work. That this isn't just while they are undergraduate students, but that they continue to make their mark. About programs we offer naturalization classes in Atlantic City. We have 2 English learners programs, one in Northfield, one in Pleasantville. We have homework completion programs in collaboration with the Atlantic City Housing Authority and the Atlantic City Police Department. In a third program, homework completion opened this year. We also have afternoon tea sessions with older adults. That's also in Atlantic City in collaboration with the Atlantic City Housing Authority. And we run a campus kitchen. The name of the kitchen is the Campus Kitchen at Atlantic City. And we prepare meals for families in need. And in addition to these programs, we offer workshops. We've done diversity workshops for employees of the county, of Atlantic County. We have done recently workshops on human rights and civil rights and how to protect ourselves and protect our rights. We will be having another workshop coming up in January, on January 4th, in Nourishing Communities and Ingredients for Success. So that's sort of a synopsis of what we do at the Center for Community Engagement. In addition to all, we have student fellows. So it's not just faculty fellows, we have student fellows who are ambassadors, just as faculty fellows have been of the mission of the Center for Community Engagement.
Service learning at Stockton has been around for over 20 years, and only within the last 5 years has it really seen a tick of really moving in a direction that I think is representative of what's going on in our country today. I think the connections that service learning makes to the national call of service, the national dialogue that's going on right now in our public affairs is really important. And I think when students take service learning courses, they need to recognize the opportunities that they have, the privilege that we are able to take on, and really learn something about ourselves that we sometimes don't learn from an everyday classroom experience. And this experience is something that I hope will stay with students throughout their years, far after they've left the university.
Well, she already expanded the program coming to the Police Athletic League of Atlantic City, and also the recreation program offered by the City of Atlantic City. That program is Tuesdays and Wednesdays. It's our collaboration with the City Recreation Department, and Emory was able to bring those classes to Dr. Martin Luther King School with her students, and that was very positive. It was the poetry class was very popular. Children enjoyed it. And she's going to return this semester as soon as we complete all the process that needs to happen, the background checks and so forth for students to contribute. To your question, if she were to expand, where could she offer these classes? I think that working with older adults in Atlantic City, that might be a population that would enjoy having poetry sessions. And I think the Boys and Girls Club of Atlantic City could enjoy having poetry sessions too. And definitely maintaining the programs that she started with the Police Athletic League and the Atlantic City Recreation Program.
Covenant House basically provides for all the needs of young people who find themselves, for whatever reasons, without a safe place to stay. We basically bring in young people, no questions asked. We really want to hear their stories, meet their immediate needs, and really provide the care that they need. We provide a continuum of care services for young people, as well as a continuum of care of housing for young people. We're able to meet their basic needs. We're able to really sit them down, find out what their dreams are, and begin to set up a plan, really co-create a plan for them to achieve any of the goals that they want to achieve. We do provide medical services for young people, legal services, education and vocational supports. We also have a behavioral health specialist. who works with our young people. We have an independent living team that helps the young people to find affordable housing in the community, and we also have a long-term independent living center that works with our kids on a long-term basis and really helps them to grow into who they really are, continue to meet their goals, and to save their money so that they can transition into the community successfully. So why Poetry Matters? It gives our kids an outlet. It gives our kids a way to express themselves creatively. A lot of our young people are sometimes resistant to going into poetry class because they've never really been exposed to it before. But the Why Poetry Matters class really introduces our young people to poetry in a lighthearted kind of way, so that they can kind of work at their own pace. Some kids, they choose not to participate, but the students are really good at engaging our young people and kind of getting them and encouraging them to begin to write. So it's a lot of our kids, before the poetry class even came to Covenant House, they didn't even know that they had it within them. But the class kind of really brings out their creative sides, and they're really able to write about, some of the trauma that they've had, some of the issues that they're going through. They're really able to get their feelings out on paper, again, in a creative way that they're at the end of the day really proud of. So it also helps to really boost their self-esteem.
So my experience with the class was that I honestly wanted to take Emory again because I took her my freshman year. So I decided I was just going to take this class, and I was already in the creative writing program. So I love poetry, and I did a lot of community service. I was like, this is the perfect combination class, and with one of my favorite professors. I took the class, and I knew that there was going to be like this service learning project aspect that's a huge part. And at first I thought it was going to be like any other community service I've done. I didn't know how much it was going to change my life because I'm not an education major, I wasn't an education major. I never wanted to be a teacher. Both my parents were teachers, and my siblings are like three of them are teachers. So, and my grandma was a teacher, so I was like, I'm never going to be a teacher. And then I took this program, and I taught kids poetry. And to be honest, these kids changed my perspective because they didn't really need poetry. They needed someone there after school that was passionate about something, and whatever it was, they were going to enjoy it because someone cared about what they were doing after school. And a lot of these students were from, the oldest child was 14 years old, and the youngest was literally like a 3-year-old. And I panicked, and I thought I was like too strict, and I thought they weren't gonna like me. But within those like few weeks, we got so close, and it showed me that I probably like didn't help them as much as they helped me, because this was my last semester, and I realized that I really wanted to work with students. Like, I realized that the stigma of being a teacher and how rewarding it is just became like a reality, and the stigma of like, oh, teachers don't do enough or whatever just like was erased. And they taught me that like how to be a person that's there for someone, and to also be a teacher without necessarily giving them like a grade. If they we used to teach them simple things like saying please and thank you, and that wasn't poetry, but we used poetry like as an outlet. So I thought it was really amazing time with them, and I think that people that volunteered with me also agree. Like, none of us will ever like forget that experience. And now I became a teacher because of the program.
So Emory is a pretty awesome teacher. The thing that really struck me first about her was when, like, right off the bat, it was, I forget the exercise completely, but it was something along the lines of what were your experiences with poetry? What turned you off to it? What turned you on to it? Or something along those lines. And I just remember thinking, like, the first thing that came to mind was Shakespeare, and how in English class, you know, you're given these sonnets and all this stuff to read with Shakespeare. It was it just seemed so dry. It just seemed so out of touch, I guess would be the best way to put it. And so, I mean, a lot of people felt that way in the class, and we all kind of shared that. And just as the class, like, so when when you're given something like Shakespeare and then the teacher says, okay, now write me a poem, that's pretty hard to compare. Like, you're talking about somebody who hundreds of years ago were still using their work. And Emory did the exact opposite of any English teacher I ever had, because it was never about here's the pedestal, write something that can compare to that, because nothing can compare to that. And the way she taught was more along the lines of, here's an idea of how this, like, or here's a poem, you know, pick out the parts that stick out to you. What's interesting, what catches your eye, where's the symbology, like making you think about it. And then when she gave you a writing prompt, there was like nothing to go on as far as structure, as far as content. I mean, it was like she gave you just enough to make something click, but you were really on your own. So it gave you a lot of freedom in a good way. And I really liked the way that she structured that class, and she gave you a lot of freedom.
We realized that being, like, people always say, like, these kids need this and they need that, and they don't, almost like the kids don't have something to offer. And I think why Poetry Matters shows the students that take that class why poetry matters and what can change about them more than the service that they are doing. A lot of people think like, oh, I'm going to take this class and it's going to be community service and we're helping people, and that's very true, but more often than not, the service that you're doing actually helps you as a person. People in that class I became friends with, I found out stuff about them, and then when we worked with those kids, we found out more about what we cared about. Not every student liked me. Like with the kids that we worked with, like those students, one of the 3-year-olds really liked one of my peers more, and he could relate to her, and I couldn't get to her. Like, she would, if I gave her instructions, like, no, like she just wasn't going to listen. But my peer could connect with her, and one of the students that really stood out to me was the 14-year-old. And I think she was really frustrated that she was in this program with little kids, and I never knew how to like connect with her until I realized I also went to Atlantic City High School, and she told me that she really liked her photography class, and we connected on that level. And none of my peers would be able to connect on that level because they didn't go to Atlantic City High School or take the same photography class that she was taking. So we realized that like helping others and helping yourself can come through like from making different connections.
I think what happens when you're a college student and you've been a college student for quite a while, because I did Covenant House when I was a junior. So after 3 years of college, you kind of get bogged down by subject matter. You kind of get lost in just all the commotion of the semester. And so what really appealed to me about working with Covenant House is it was one night a week where you did your preparation to go in there and teach your lesson, but the reactions you got from the lesson you gave, that you doubted the whole time you're putting together, is this going to work? Are they going to take to it? All these things. I mean, when you saw how excited they were to see you, when you saw how excited they were to write and share their poems, it stirred this fire. It stirred this fire in you that you didn't know you had lost until it had been rekindled. Because I mean, there's nothing more rewarding than when you see all your hard work and effort into something be given back to you tenfold, just from smiles, from laughter, from them pulling you to the side and saying, like, I had one girl in particular, she, in the beginning of the class, she had writer's block, and she was big into writing poetry and all this stuff, and she would pull me aside every class and tell me about how this class was helping her get past her writer's block. You had another girl who was not good at public speaking, and by the end of our 6 weeks with them, she was writing the poems for their big parties at Covenant House to say for Thanksgiving, for Christmas, for New Year's, and she was going to open mic nights, even on nights where we weren't necessarily requiring them to go, and just to, she basically overcame her fear of public speaking, and when you see that you had that impact on them just through something like service learning, it's huge. And yeah, the whole thing with Covenant House is it's all young adults that have much less than we do. And a lot of the things that we take for granted, from stability and family, from not going to bed hungry, from not needing to worry about where you're going to sleep next, we take a lot of that for granted. So being able to see that there was still hope within them, how could, as somebody who's in college, how could you ever lose hope on what you're trying to do if this group of people never lost hope? So I think that's what attracted me to Covenant House. It was just the whole fact of, it was intoxicating. It really was to be around them. And they were all so talented. Like, for example, the Why Poetry Matters, I would spend like 2 or 3 nights in a row trying to come up with a poem for Emery's class. And I always hated them, and you ended up just being like, screw it, this is what I'm gonna give you. But in a matter of the 20 to 30 minute writing block, the things some of these kids wrote would just blow your mind, where they're just so talented, and it made you want to keep coming back to tell them how talented they were. And it just kind of reinforced that whole, sometimes people tell you things and you just blow them off like, oh, you're just telling me that to make me feel better. But when you're on the opposite end, telling somebody you're really gifted, don't give up writing, don't give up spoken word or music and all these things they're interested in, it makes you realize that that there is that power when there's that connection, and everybody, some people can see it from the outside even though you can't see it from within, because they all doubted themselves and how they wrote and everything. And just to be there to reinforce that, like, you are really talented and you are really good at what you're doing, and don't give up. It was just made you feel really good, and that's really it. Those kids were really a pleasure to be around, to say the least.
I like using service learning as a teaching tool in Why Poetry Matters, because it gives students an opportunity to make a direct connection in the community and to see how poetry can be a tool for social change. I think that undergraduates from all majors across Stockton may not have had an opportunity to develop a relationship with poetry. And so some of the things that I might offer them at the beginning of the term seem foreign and strange, but then when they have to bring lessons into the community to work with different populations, they see how poetry is common ground for them. Youth that may have had an entirely different upbringing from them, school systems that have far less resources than they had. And so they connect through the poetry, and they find opportunities to grow and be changed by the experience. So I like to start the class by teaching the first few sessions as community poetry courses. So I don't introduce the textbook at the beginning of the course. I want to model the exact kind of teaching I want my students to be doing later in the term. And this helps students see that we don't need a textbook, that we don't need handouts, that we don't need what are the historical ways of delivering literature, that we can break the rules in those ways and explore poetry in a different way. It's important for me to help students in the class be on the same page in terms of what a poem is and how we might talk about it. And so we share a lot of language in terms of how to read a poem, how to be comfortable with not understanding everything a poem might be delivering. And once we've established some of those skills, I have students start to read lots of material that guides them through community teaching to offering these types of poetry outside of the traditional academic setting. And as we're doing that type of reading, I share information about the sites. And so I'll go through the list of sites that we've used at least the past 2 or 3 semesters, and community partners with whom I've established a positive relationship. Right now, Covenant House is the longest running workshop, and we've been working with them for 8 years, which is huge and amazing, and I'm really excited that we have that partnership. Some of the partnerships some unfortunately come to an end because of administration at certain sites. I loved working with Family Service Association, but they have a new particular guideline that limits the amount of undergraduate interns they can have at their facility. So though we had been sending 2 groups of students to work there, we can no longer send any. And they've missed out now on what had been a free therapy writing session for both their young children and a teen workshop. So we talk about the groups a lot, and we try to imagine the worst case scenarios at any of those sites. And I allow students to select which sites seem good fits both for their personalities, their interests, and their schedules. And the schedules very often will make the decision for them. If they can only teach on Wednesday nights at 6 p.m., well, the crew of folks who could only do that day and time are going to be going to one site together, whether that was their first choice or not. And as we move to selecting those groups, I invite students back who took the course in prior semesters to share their experiences and to reveal that it's going to be nothing like they imagined before they actually started, and to share both their successes, their challenges, and their failures. And I think that that's really important, that teaching in this kind of environment isn't without its bumps. You know, that there are going to be moments that students will be disengaged, that the site will be closed and never contacted you, that paperwork will be messed up and something that you ordered for a project suddenly isn't here on time. All of those things are important to acknowledge. And once we've completed the appropriate paperwork, then students prepare a meet and greet lesson, and they will do some mock teaching in class, walking us through their lessons, and the other students in the course give feedback. So in this room, ideally, I'd love to have meet and greets, which are not your full teaching lesson, but meet and greets next week, and then start teaching the following week. That's how I'd like it to go down. For some of you, that will happen. For some of you, you might need a little more time for whatever reason. Sometimes it's the site, sometimes it's your group. If at any point in time, there's a snafu in terms of scheduling. So say you happen to be a Wednesday group and your site is closed the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and there's some other holiday or something like that, and you suddenly have fewer sessions, we will adjust it. You'll do a longer session, you'll readjust it. I know that you asked that question in the last class, if we have to, or can we do longer sessions for fewer days. If that becomes a necessity, we will. We can do that. Only a very few sites won't permit that, and that's just based on how long they're physically in the building and what they have security for, things like that. But we'll work it out as best we can.
So our opener, I try to relate it to our lesson to kind of help with the brainstorming. And so we're with a younger population, so we're gonna have them blow up balloons, and then for the brainstorming is to write different places on the balloon, places you've been, places you want to go, or imaginary places, just any places that are important to them or they can think of. And then they're gonna toss the balloons and catch somebody else's balloon, so they have multiple ideas of places, so they get ideas from someone else if they couldn't think of a lot. And then we're gonna have them all pop the balloons at once so that it's fun, but it also gets them not to pop the balloons throughout the rest of the class.
That's what I would say. It has some bigger words in it, so you could always have if you made a tiny box in the bottom that was word bank. Because that has because I feel they were
desolate. Yeah.
Right, exactly, desolate. Which they might know that. If not, desolate equals blank. Yeah, I just think you have too much text for them for a first session, which could be overwhelming.
All right, so I did the closer. I chose the going underneath poems, which I thought were just really cool because they're simple. They require a lot of imagination for the most part. So it's basically just testing their ability to come up with things on the spot, using creativity as a tool. So basically the first thing I would come up with is explain the basic concept of the underneath poem. Basically you just make a poem about anything that's underneath something. So read examples that I have. These are actually ones out of the book from first graders The first one is from Kitty Ollendorf and Becky Fales. Under the moon is the stars, under the stars is the rainbow, under the rainbow is a tree, and under the tree is me and Kitty. And the other one is under the tree is an octopus, under the octopus is a seashell, under the water is a mermaid, under the mermaid is a worm, under the worm is a rock, under the rock is a hand. So then I would want to jump into the fact that these don't have to make sense. It is basically all what you want to write about. I don't want anybody to be concerned about, oh, is it going to make any sense? I'm not really going to worry about it making sense because clearly is an octopus really under a tree at any point in its life? I don't think so. So I just want kids to have free reign on their creativity.
Remember that they live in an urban environment, so there can be other things that are very specific to fall living in the city. The smells are different, or the lack of smell. Like for example, trash day doesn't stink anymore once it's cool. The same way, like there's like the not stinky trash smell is equals fall, and it's true, and just whatever other details. And then I set them loose, and I let them go, and I let whatever happens happen. And so they'll report back, and just this semester, 2 groups had challenges with the site itself, where they would arrive and be told by the person in charge, well, today we've closed the session early because there's a meeting, or we've closed today because the kids didn't have a lot of homework, and so we let them all go. And so some of the groups started late because there was miscommunication with the site or something else. We're also sort of at the mercy of whatever's happening within a particular institution or with the sites in Atlantic City, where the budget crisis has affected many extracurricular activities. Some of our sites have to be switched or have limited time there. So, and then they teach and they reflect in class. And ultimately, I think that the students, my students, see a positive change in the community they're working with. And I also think that ultimately the young people we're working with in the community see a really powerful change in themselves, and they also feel connected to a university student in the way they couldn't have imagined before this experience.
I really don't know what to expect. I'm hoping that overall I will be able to take something out of it, and that most importantly the students will be able to just take something away from their experience and be able to use poetry in their daily lives, and hopefully it will help them as they move forward. What about their shape?
It's a circle.
Circle. Anything else about Devil X?
Nasty. Why do you think?
Right, nasty again.
Are you serious? You're nasty. You like you like
Alright, cake.
Black football. Cake. Black football. Frost. Soft. Crunchy. Black football. Hey. Black football. You hear me?
I heard you. You got it. Yeah. How does cake taste?
Basketball. What? How does cake taste? Soccer ball. Tasty.
Is it nasty?
It's horrible. Yes, yummy.
It's tasty.
No.
It's tasty.
No. Basketball. Cake is
How does cake
basketball.
smell? Like when it's baking, does it smell like delicious?
Soccer.
So a stanza is a division of 4 or more lines having a fixed length, meter, or rhyming scheme. Stanzas in poetry are similar. Is that to paragraphs, yeah. Both stanzas and paragraphs include connected thoughts and are set off by space.
Yeah, and that's why I said if there was something like we're dead, because they could have. I was trying to think if there was a specific moment like they were into it and then they felt like, say for example, they wrote but then they wouldn't act out. Then it's like, okay, we now know that population is shyer than they seem. But if it's sort of in general, I think it was just
from the jump. Yeah.
Invisible person following you.
Invisible person following you.
Your true self.
Oh, I like that one. Any like words to describe that?
Specific words.
Dark. Okay.
Metallic gray.
Shade. Contrast.
I was gonna say constant.
What was that?
It's still there.
So if you're in a dark room.
Won't appear in the dark room.
Yeah, what if you're in a dark room?
Where's your
Yeah,
shadow?
what if you're in a dark room? You can't see your shadow.
There's shadows everywhere.
As I look into the mirror, I see inside the interior. My demons that eat at me, they make me envy the other side of me, the other side of things. But I came across a perspective change that brought out the darker side inside. A matrix that displaced each thought I had in mind, but it's too late, there's no button to rewind. History, so I sit here and swallow the pain and sorrows because no one has understood his story.
Mars. That's a little idea.
Bars.
And I have another one.
Yeah?
Go ahead.
Well, actually, I like that part because, like, I broke down the history.
I remember last time you had your music on.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with that. But, and then I have this other one, I don't know. I'm a sick kid who's wicked and striving to survive with a struggle with no magic involved to you Harry Potter fans, one might call me a muggle. And through the struggle I stumble and teeter off, got tossed back and forth like a game of lacrosse. Hopping home was like a game of hopscotch, so I created a mosh posh in my mind that I had a dream, and to fulfill this dream to create a mindset and be mindful that success is a mindset to keep in mind every time I get off line, every time I get out of line, so I keep myself on the right track and not lose my train of thought. At what I've been taught, that I'm a technician with these rhymes.
Love it. Love
So
it.
shady over here.
But no, they were cool. They weren't like as into it as the girls were. I don't know if they were just trying to be like cool or whatnot, but it was different. We were just confused as to where all like the, not like favoring the girls, but like the girls that we had were so into it. We were like, why did we do that? I don't know if there was something going on.
There could have been something going on.
Yeah. We didn't want to ask and be like, where are these people? But
It's been really amazing to watch the undergraduates be transformed by this experience. Right now, I have a female student who is quite reserved. She's a strong writer, but she's someone who does not feel confident volunteering her voice in our college classroom. And I know that asking her to teach in the community certainly stretched her boundaries and was something that she did not want to do. And in her last reflection, she's teaching at Stanley Holmes right now, she revealed how she made this amazing connection with one of the older girls at the site who was shy and reserved and a strong writer, and how when the student was stuck and didn't know where to go, how when she sat with her and offered her just a few words to get her going, the student took off with it and wrote this amazing piece and was really proud of herself. And she saw so much of herself in that young girl. And since that experience, my own student has volunteered now in class, which she has never done until that particular experience. And so I get to watch this blossoming of the self, of my undergraduates. I also have witnessed how students may have shied away from careers in education or with working with youth, and then upon having this experience teaching in the community, they've either changed their major or they've made just some changes with their major to decide that they are going to work with youth, that they are going to go into education, and that's altered the course of their lives as a result of this course. And that's not every student, but it's really remarkable when it does happen. I think one of the most memorable moments for me in teaching this course probably happened about 3 years ago. I was advising the Writing Living Learning community on campus, and we would host open mics and readings in some of the actual living space. And so we had a reading set up in the lounge area of housing on Lakeside Center. And I was walking from my car to the dormitory with my materials, and I see a bunch of young men playing basketball. And I see this one young man who's looking at me, and he's sort of slowing down as he's playing. And I think, God, do I know that kid? Is he my student? And he looks familiar, but I can't place him. And he actually looks too young. He looks too young to be my student. And he's slowing down, and he comes to a stop on the basketball court, and he's the only one, and he's staring at me. And I'm maybe 20 feet from him, and he says, "Yo, are you the poetry lady?" And I said, "I am." And I remembered he had been a young man who was at Southern Residential Community Home, who was transitioning out of the facility, and that is a wonderful facility for young people who may have been involved with some run-ins with the law and are now receiving their high school diploma or their GED and working towards re-entering the community. And so he had been a young man in this workshop maybe a year prior to when I encountered him on the basketball field. And he stopped and he said, "Do you remember me?" And I did, and I was able to say his name. And he said, I want to thank you. That workshop meant a lot. And he meant it. He meant that moment where a group of undergraduate students was coming in and offering poems and offering him an opportunity to write and talk about both what he had been through and what he was imagining for his future, that was really significant. And my students treated him with a kind of respect that he may not have been used to receiving. These students who were university students who came in, for a grade obviously, but they were coming in and offering their time and treating him as a whole human. And so he thanked me, and I invited him to the open mic, which he did not attend, but he said that he wouldn't be able to. He had his basketball game to get back to. And that was a really powerful moment, that here in this young man's life, in the middle of a game, that he's going to stop to thank me and to say just how much that opportunity meant to him. So I think that has been one of the most powerful experiences for me. I think anytime we have brought a group of students together to share their work, whether some of the members of, who might have participated in the Covenant House workshop, there was an open mic at the Ventnor Coffee House and also at the Noise Art Gallery. Whenever we've assembled them and they've had an opportunity to share their work as a cohort, it's always a beautiful and moving event where so many voices that are typically unheard, we suddenly get to hear them, and we hear their gifts, their great poems, and again we're able to connect with them, and to see members of the larger community meet these young people is just really phenomenal. And so I feel so fortunate that this is part of my life, that I'm able to offer this course and that I'm able to teach in the community with my students. I think that this course came out of my own experience teaching in a hospital environment as a graduate student, where I had the wonderful opportunity to teach poetry in a pediatric unit and or with a group of adults at Weill Cornell University Medical Center and at Roosevelt Islands. I don't remember the name of that hospital, so you have to edit that out, but that's fine. But I had this wonderful opportunity to teach poetry myself in the community, and that transformed my relationship with the written word, particularly when I worked with youth who were, in the hospital. Some of them had a broken collarbone, and some of them had cancer, and to see the way in which all of them could benefit from writing, whether it was through an opportunity to express their pain and the fact that they felt and sometimes were, going through this alone, or it was a way to escape the trauma and suffering of their lives, to celebrate what it is to be a child, to celebrate what it is to be human. And so it is a great joy to be able to offer that at Stockton for my undergrads and for members of the community. I think that the outreach opportunity allows students to see poetry in practice. They can see a therapeutic benefit. They can see the way in which students develop more confidence. They can see the way in which students grasp skills in reading, writing, and critical thinking. And it's hands-on. When we just read, if we were to read case studies in class about how poetry has been particularly powerful for prison populations or young people in inner city school districts, it doesn't have the same effect. By actually going to these sites and working with young people, they can see it. And they also get to experience literature in a way that's very different from a traditional literature class, where they're studying it solely on the page and not thinking about how the text can interact with the human. I would love to expand this program. I would love for it to be year-round. If I could wave a magic wand, I would have enough money to hire teaching artists at a variety of the sites so that we could have a point person at Stanley Holmes who is there year-round, and my students in Why Poetry Matters would be their assistant, and they'd be offering their own lessons, and we'd be able to provide a free poetry programming unit outside of the semesters. Right now we're limited by the students enrolled in the course and who wants to go to a particular population, who's comfortable with that community partner. And then it ends at the end of the term, so it takes a certain amount of time to prepare each group of students to go to a site, and then they're there and magic happens and then they leave. And so there's not a type of continuity, and so ideally we'd have continuity and we'd have funds to be able to create that continuity. We'd also have funds to be able to provide enough notebooks and markers and folders for students, and we'd be able to have celebratory pizza parties at each site too.